Good morning, Bielsa. Good morning, Nigeria. You're tuning to your favorite public affairs, of course, a current affairs program. Let's Talk Nigeria, right here on Golding 97.5 FM Yenagua. We are here to serve you and to give you all the best. This is the platform where we break down the issues, unpack the headlines, and connect the dots between policies, politics, and the people. I am Moya Stephen.
And I am Paul Oblomugbasa.
And as always, it's a privilege to share this space with you, the thinkers, the change makers, and the everyday Nigerians who understand that staying informed is the first step to driving progress. Today on the show, we are going deep into a political topic that's been generating quiet but significant ripples across the national landscape. The internal politics of the African Democratic Congress, ADC, and how, surprisingly or not, it concerns the ruling party.
Yep, and now the ADC might not be Nigeria's largest party by numbers, but recent developments within its internal structure, from leadership tussles to coalition talks and shifting alliances, have started raising some interest questions. Now, is there more to the recent shakeups in the ADC than meets the eye? That is for one. Could the ruling party be watching closely, or should they even be bothered about it, or even strategically positioning itself as the drama unfolds? Now, in Nigerian politics, nothing exists in a vacuum, which is the truth. And smaller parties even often serve as either stepping stones or stumbling blocks in the grand political.
Mr. Barrister, before I ask you the first question, let's put this into perspective. There are key developments in the ADC court, in the ADC currently. 3 ADC members, Adeyemi Emmanuel, Ayodeji Victor Tolu, and Haruna Ismaila, have filed a suit at the Federal High Court in Abuja. That was on the 4th of July. Now, they are challenging the legitimacy of the interim leadership hemmed by Senator David Mark, Rauf Aregbesola, and Bolaji Abdullahi. And their arguments, they argue that former National Chairman Ralph Musu lacked the authority to convene the NEC or the NWC. Their tenure supposedly expired in September 2022. Consequently, the interim appointments are claimed to be unconstitutional, unlawful, null and void, and the INEC should be restrained from recognizing them. The plaintiffs also dispute whether those appointed were even registered ADC members or met the party's membership duration rules. So there are a lot of things they came up with, and the ADC.
And it's very possible with the Nigerian situation. Very, very possible. Very, very possible, because you don't just know how most times. And then, our jurisprudence in our electoral process jurisprudence is still developing. So the laws have not really finally cemented. So you will not realize that there are very many conflicting decisions that might go either way. You look at the case of Plateau. In Plateau State, House of Assembly, National Assembly members, they were elected. And then the Supreme Court, the appeal court, because those elections, they eclipse at the appeal court. Appeal court held that those persons, because they were not validly nominated, the court came to the finding that they were not validly nominated. And as a result, their votes were wasted votes. And the court now said that the persons that came, the runners-up should take over. And they took over. But Caleb Mufwang, the governor of the state, he went on to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court frowned at that decision, saying that you cannot from another party come to challenge the candidacy of another party, and then upturned the decision removing him as governor. So you now see there are so many issues surrounding litigations, especially in the electoral process, that will now leave so many persons in doubt as to who to cast their vote for, especially institutions like this, when there are valid grounds So the ADC just really need to put their house in order.
Let's look at the first argument, where they argue that the former national chairman, Ralph Nwosu, lacked the authority to convene the NEC because their tenure supposedly expired in 2022. That's a little bit disturbing.
It is very disturbing. It's very disturbing. Just that it is very, very funny. A few months ago, the Supreme Court gave a decision that clearly settled this issue. So the matter is sub judice. But if we want to really look at it objectively, the decision falls in the same line with that of the Julius Abure decision, where the Supreme Court held that leadership of political parties, that actions arising out of it are not justiciable, that you cannot go to court to ventilate such claims. So at the end of the day, when you look at it in that light, they have no case. But when you also look at it at the angle of the Constitution and all the rest, let's just leave it to the court to decide.
Okay, so now, because we're just looking at all of these different things, how does this, how does the internal crisis somehow bring about a strengthening? I'm looking at this thing. Can they settle this thing quickly so that they can have a formidable force? Like I said, a third force. It used to be APC, PDP, Labour Party the other time. That this time around, can we have them settle everything so that they can have a third force or a third voice, an option for Nigerians?
Okay, so whether or not they settle their issues very quickly, it's left to them. They know how to handle their issues. But recently, a former presidential candidate has come out to lay very grievous allegation. He said the ruling party is the one sponsoring all these litigations and issues in the other opposition parties. And even the current interim leader of the ADC, David Mark, has also said similar something. He said it is the APC that are sponsoring this. So it's just very funny. They have to put their house in order. They have to work. Just that the Nigerian politician, the African politician, especially the Nigerian politician, we hate competition. We just hate competition. Instead of you to allow the opposition, there is hardly a time you have Republicans leading the Congress. You will definitely have Democrats also forming a majority in the Congress. So, but in the Nigerian situation, like currently now, you have the president in the ruling party, you have the Senate president in the ruling party, and virtually the National Assembly is in control of the ruling party. That is why you see there is basically no checks and balances anymore. A state of emergency was declared in Rivers State. And the whole idea about the emergency and the way it was handled, you all see as if there was nobody even trying to question why the president went the way he has gone. So the opposition is always a critical factor in any viable democracy. So long as we don't have any active opposition, we'll continue being in the level we are.
But this thing is very, very concerning, because you know what?
And the other faction claiming to be loyal to the governors and all the rest. So if you look at it in the light of other cases that have gone past, like I mentioned in Zamfara and all the rest, you now see the fact that PDP might likely not have candidates, because the courts will definitely frown at persons going against court orders. Understand? In certain instances, the court will just say, you violated this court order. Do you get? So PDP are moving on a very slippery road. Then likewise, the Labour Party. Julius Abure claimed to have done the National Convention that then there were indications that they were not even going to use the ADC, that they were going to form whether ADA or something. So I think it was a calculated move to ensure that the ruling party does not know their next step. But I'm also very sure that politicians, they are very crafty. They are also weighing their options. The PDP can also settle their difference, because the last NWC meeting they held, Asamaya was there, Damagu was there, and all the leaders were there. So even the Labour Party, for instance, once IMF comes to say that then this money is recognized, then the Labour, the Julius Abure and the Apapa faction too will also collapse. So the politicians, they are also looking at their options. Like Peter Obi said, he has not left the Labour Party. So I'm also very sure that he also weighing his options to know the particular way he will go. But let us leave it to the politicians. We all know what we'll do at the right time. That
statement, when you say that, because you should remember how that prior to the elections, the last general elections, the Apapa faction didn't even come out to say anything at all until after the elections, and Kate Peter Obi went to court. That's when he came and said that no, that his own he's the leader. They're not aware of the